welcome to everyone. We're really excited to be able to share some ideas with you and get some discussion and debate going, and to really work out a way forward and give you some ideas of what you could put onto your action list. So very big welcome again to everyone, and to our wonderful David Ferns, who's going to take us through a few of how he's ideas around how he sees the world. I think, David, you're quite immersed in this co-pilot world at the moment. I know you do a lot of training for MCI, and so it's really great to have you in the session with us, as well as, I think, a really strong cohort of people who've also been experimenting, trying out different things with Copilot, with different AI platforms. So I'm really, for one, looking forward to hearing what you have to say. So we're just waiting for a few people and their AI meeting note takers.
Yes, Read
to join
AI
the
and
meeting.
Firefly and all of them, yes. Well, as a matter of fact, Teams has a facilitator which takes notes, which is nice. And you can use
Yes.
Copilot inside of Teams as well, which is really nice.
Oh, that is definitely going to be our next topic, I think.
Indeed,
We
yes,
need
Teams
to
for,
explore that. Oh,
yeah,
yes, I
Copilot for
like
virtual
that.
meetings, 100%, yes.
Because that's another big efficiency drive and a big time saver.
Yes.
So a very big welcome to everyone who is attending. It's always very special, and we're very grateful that you've given up some of your time to come along today and to hear a little bit more, experience something a bit different, get to hear other points of view, and we will certainly be keeping the chat open, that if you'd like to ask questions, make comments, there'll be a few little areas for polls, you're very welcome to do so. So just to get started, welcome, just to say that MCI acknowledges that the lands and waters of the country we meet on today have been in the care of traditional custodians for thousands of years. We pay respects to the elders of local people, past and present, and to emerging leaders. MCI acknowledges and extends respect to people from all the cultures and diverse identities who walk on this country. And boy, would they be shocked if they saw what was happening from those days to where we are now. And a big welcome as well to our guest, who is going to be rapid firing some ideas and answering some questions as we go along. So very big welcome to you, David. And I know that you've got, I'm not saying that anyone in the world is completely experienced in all parts of AI, but you certainly gone deep into the expertise needed to get Copilot going, and you do a lot of work for MCI. So to get us started, I thought we'll first tap into the amazing brains trust that we have in the room today, and just ask people to quickly type into chat and sort of consider, how confident are you thinking about your team or your organization as a whole, knowing that your team knows how to check whether AI output is accurate? Would you say you're not very confident, you're kind of in the middle, or 5, you are extremely confident? What are you saying? I'm seeing a lot of 3s, 4s. That's pretty good. Okay. All right, well, at least we're not seeing any 1s. Okay, so it sort of seems to be hovering around the middle area there, which is quite interesting. There's a great comment there.
The 2. I like that,
two.
Mel. It's a great comment.
A really
Yes,
good
very good.
comment. And I think it is something worth contemplating and thinking through as you go through the session, and what we could do to keep upping the game and keeping that level of confidence a lot higher. So what we're going to be covering today is a little bit around this sort of hidden cost if people are just doing these guesstimates and not knowing quite what's going on and where the guardrails are. We also want to make sure that we give you a few tips on around, how do we make this work in an effective and efficient way. We're going to delve into a little bit of Copilot as well. So we're going to get hands-on. And I know that David's got some very interesting 3 things that I'm already excited. Like, David, show me how to do this. And I hope that will interest you as well. And then obviously give you some really practical ideas for ways in which you can move forward and train your team. And we have a really nice special free, everything free is really worthwhile looking at. And we've got a great gift for you at the end. So if we're good to go, I'd love to get a little reaction, and let's move straight into our first question. So, David, I mean, I'm saying the obvious. AI is everywhere. I mean, that's sort of, what's the word? Just saying what is obvious. But I think where the concern comes is around trust. Because what I'd like to know from you is, from what you're seeing, and you work across many organizations, what are leaders most worried about when it comes to using AI at work? What is concerning them?
From what I've found, Denise, it's mostly confidentiality and trust in the fact that the data that they're using is protected, but also the fact that whether it will make a real difference in the work. Some have been saying to me, yes, but I still have to double check my work afterwards. Is it going to be better using AI? Is it going to save me time, and is it going to make my life better? So maybe, I don't know if I could hear from the audience some of the concerns that you've had. Are they similar, or perhaps some other things that perhaps that you've noticed with regard to that?
And I think, to add to that, David, I think some of the concerns from people who are in a leadership role versus people who are in a sort of team member, employee type role might be a little bit different as well.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Job security. Oh, Nikki, I see in the chat, just nailed that. Will AI take our jobs? And I think we do have to acknowledge that that is a very real concern, particularly given the very high profile, examples that we've seen in the media about organizations who are shedding percentages of staff because of
Yes.
AI.
Yes, very true. So recently there's been some big headlines with jobs being replaced, but then later I found out that they've been rehiring people in different roles. And I see in the Australian National AI rollout, they're talking about new positions that we haven't had before. So there seems to be a complete new industry being developed at the moment with AI. So yeah, it's very
Yeah.
good.
So definitely no heads in the sand, and sort of keeping it going. And please, everyone, keep an eye on chat, because our amazing participants are certainly giving us some good input as well.
Yes,
So
very
moving
true.
on to the next question, David, considering then, what is this trust issue around AI? What does that mean? Are people concerned about accuracy? Is it a privacy, as you mentioned, issue? Is
Yep.
it a decision-making, accountability? So
Yep.
if you could just unpack that a bit for us.
Okay. So primarily it comes around privacy and accuracy. Also the fact that when one perhaps runs a prompt and they generate perhaps an analysis of a document, is the information reliable? There's a word that's been bandied about called hallucinations, which basically means AI makes up its own stuff. And so I think a lot of people, especially decision makers, are concerned, because if you're working with information that requires accuracy, that's something that would be of real concern to people. Yes, and I've noticed that some in the audience have also mentioned that accuracy is a concern that they have.
Yeah, because you don't know where it's being drawn from. Have you seen that there've also been cases around bias and, how things are positioned in terms of some of the responses that the AI provides?
Yes, well, for example, if you were to generate a simple image, you may just say, please create an image of a doctor and a nurse. The bias might show that the doctor is a male and the nurse is a female, which is a stereotype. But then also in the case of the fact that AI will only go off the data that it's studying, which the large language models are doing. But really around the actual work side of things, I think the issues that companies have is that can I take this information and reliably use it for something I need to either quote on or something I need to send as information to a client. And so we have Ben just put it on there. They're worried about safety at work, guardrails, so policy that will protect the workplace. And so those are all very true with regard to the concerns that people have at the moment.
Yeah, and I think we do have to sort of recognize that those concerns are most certainly out there. But where you have seen that people in an organization are already using AI, whether it be Copilot or one of the platforms in their everyday work, what happens if there isn't kind of a formal strategy around this? You know, like if people are just diving in and sort of doing whatever they like.
Okay. Actually, that's the scariest part. So you get a thing called shadow AI. So what that means is you'll always have some employees in the company that love AI. They're quick onto it. They know how to use it. They've been learning how to prompt effectively. But then what they're doing is they're using like free chat GPT, for example, and they're uploading a sensitive company document. And the problem with that is that large language models can study that document. You're basically opening your document to the internet. And so instead of having that situation, company or organization should really be at the forefront and saying, let's give our staff or our employees, our teams, AI, but let's just put some guardrails, as Ben mentioned correctly, put in some governance so that it can be used effectively and move our organization forward.
Yeah. And I think it's obviously not something that you would have planned 10 years ago, but it's something that
That's
is
true.
very much in the spotlight now. Companies that set out their 10-year strategy plan. I don't know
Yes, it's a new world, Denise,
where
for
this
sure.
would have featured. So then you had mentioned hallucinations, but could you just tell us a little bit more about them? And then obviously the next follow-up question is going to be, well, how do we spot them? You know, how do we know what we're reading is
Okay.
accurate or a hallucination?
Okay, so hallucinations basically means that AI will, so you'll run a prompt or you'll ask a question, maybe you'll even use a document, but then what the AI will do or the large language model will do is it will generate content in there that you know is not related to the document.
But
It's
could
just
I just
made
stop
things up.
you a moment there, David? Because if you're not an expert in the field, it could certainly, like, how do you know? An example for me was that, you know, I know Australian vocational qualifications very well, and the AI insisted to me that a particular qualification had been discontinued, had been, you know, it had fallen off. But I
Okay.
knew that it existed because we've got students enrolled. But if
Yes.
I wasn't an expert, why would I doubt the AI word on that?
Okay. So it comes down to a couple of things. The first thing, Denise, is called grounding. So instead of using AI for general purpose, where you're relying on the internet or the web for your resources, you'd ground it in verified documents that your organization would have. And the second part, it comes down to education. Before using AI, if you're providing the right tools and they are using it effectively, then when they review the document at the end, they'll be able to tell based on what they've got that the responses are accurate. And that'll reduce, if not remove, hallucinations altogether.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's some practical sage advice that
Very
I
good.
need to adhere to as well. Um, you also speak quite a bit about low risk and high risk use of Copilot. You know, is it just sort of, and we've got quite a few AI meeting takers here today. You know, what's the difference really, and how does this impact on our levels of compliance and on trust?
Okay, so Copilot, okay, so with regard to low and high risk, it depends on the task at hand, and also how you use Copilot. Now remember, Copilot has the ability for you to just analyze just your work data called grounding. So for those of you who have a Copilot license, you'll see a work versus web button. When you click on work, it will allow you to ground through your own data. And so that's a fairly low risk. High risk is when you kind of leave it open to interpretation. And that also comes down to, I suppose I'm going to use the term loose prompting. You're not providing enough context. You're not providing enough explanation in the prompt. And so then Copilot may start to make up things that perhaps aren't really what you need or even accurate. And so when it comes down to compliance, there should be some guardrails, there should be guidelines and policies so that when members of the organization use Copilot, they're using it effectively without any sort of major risk to the organization.
And would you say that that comes down to a bit more training? Is it around policy? Sort of how is this communicated to people?
Training is an interesting one, and this is just a personal point that I've noticed with a lot of the training that we're getting at the moment. Denise, is executives are getting Copilot with a license, but then they're sending their staff members with free Copilot on a course. So leaders need to lead from the front by saying, let's invest in our staff and give them the training. If they get the right license with the right training, they'll be effective and the risks will be low. But sort of having well, let's use a small test case, run it for 3 years, and then see if everyone else likes it before is probably not an effective strategy with regard to Copilot.
Okay.
No.
Thank you for that, because it's a familiar situation, I have
Fair
to
enough.
say
Yep.
as well. So, are there kind of habits that we can train or encourage our team to use around this verification so that, yes, we can ground it without question, but if we are possibly on a free version or there's AI generated images as well, how do we start noticing this?
Okay, so verification comes down to perhaps personal responsibility, um, but also, yeah. So when you're working with the content that comes back from perhaps a prompt, you need to make sure that again, I'll come back to that word grounding, that you're using a verification process, you're using an effective prompting framework. And then if somebody sends you a prompt or they share perhaps a prompt with you that you could use, just make sure that it's generating the right content. Human verification will never go away, I don't think, even with AI. Um,
Yeah.
Probably because you need to make sure that when you're sending something to someone that it's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that is a further very valid point. And please, everyone, hop into the chat if you disagree or if there's any additional response that you would like to add to what David is already saying. We set up this webinar as around, making AI prove that it's work and it's worth with a TH at the end. But what does this mean in a practical sense? What happens on a practical level?
Okay, so making AI prove its work means that is AI actually going to make a difference to my work? Is it going to take a mundane task and actually remove that mundane task from me so that I don't have to do it myself? But then also prove its work from the perspective that when I get it to analyze a document or perhaps review something that I need to look at, that it's actually performing the task that I've asked it to do. So again, that comes down to good policies, good guardrails, but then also good training as well will make a huge difference in that. I don't know if any in the audience might have a different view on that, perhaps. How do you get AI to prove its work if you're using perhaps Copilot or perhaps another AI, maybe such as Gemini or Claude? So just
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to hear. Please type into chat anyone who's using other platforms, or do you play two platforms off against each other as a
well,
mechanism?
actually, Denise, I don't have to because just recently Microsoft have just made an agreement with Anthropic to have Claude inside of Copilot, which means you now have Claude's amazing analytical abilities. And then you're also having cowork come into Copilot, which means it's going to automatically perform a lot of the tasks like an agentic AI tool without you having to do the work yourself. So,
Yes.
okay, so Louise asked a question.
Yeah, just she's talking about getting those prompts right, and I agree, Louise. I think that's a very good point that you make there. Those prompts are just too vague and too wide, and or if you can go down quite a few rabbit holes, which I also think is not the most effective way of using this. So you spoke about guardrails, but what does this mean specifically? Could you give us an example or give us some ideas around that?
Okay, so guardrails just basically means providing safety or safe use of AI. Now that comes down to the organization. Many organizations have different levels of security, like government is incredibly high security. So what generally happens is an executive team will sit down and come up with some simple policies that will act as guardrails. So before they even start with AI, before they even test AI, they want to know like who can use perhaps Copilot for what tasks and what can they access in the organization because you've got levels of privilege and then also to provide guardrails so that when they give someone access to an AI tool, that they know how to use it. I mean, it's like a chainsaw, isn't it? I mean, you say to somebody, oh, here's a chainsaw, go and use it today. They're likely to do something dangerous. Well, you provide some policies and some training in order to use the tool effectively. And Copilot or Gemini, ChatGPT are no different. They need just some guidelines. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's very, very sage advice. So if you were to pick, and I'd also like to ask the audience, if you were to pick just one action or something on a practical level that you could take this month to boost up that level of confidence and certainty that AI is being applied with in a trusting, confidential, accurate way, what would that one action be? I mean, David, from your perspective, what would it be?
Okay, so one practical action every organization should take. Okay, so interestingly, I've just been dealing with an organization that does something very interesting. Their training manager provides a prompt to all the staff to try for today. And it's
Okay.
generally a prompt that will reduce their workload. So they start with a low risk task and they get it to work, and then they say, well, let's improve the prompt. So that's quite good. I like what Mel said, and Mel, I suggest that as well to my students. I say to them, why don't you ask Copilot if this was a great prompt? Can you rate it out of 10? Or you can even upload a document and say, what is the best prompts that you would use to analyze this document? Yep,
Yeah, and Ben, I see giving another prompt there. And we've
indeed.
got a little bit of on this slide, just some ideas of how you could help your team. And if anyone wants to comment into chat as well, more practical, more guidance. And just as your promotion, we are going to be giving everyone access to a free e-learning module around AI compliance. So that's
Fantastic.
going to be your free gift. But David, what I'm going to do is hand the screen over to you and allow you to share your screen to give us just an idea of what's possible in a practical sense. So if you'd like to share your
Yep.
screen and let us know, well, what
Mm. How are we going?
what
No, that's fantastic. So, guys, I have three examples. One of them I'll run in real time, and two of them I'll just show you the output of what was created by just simply using a prompt and the power of AI. In this case, it's Copilot. So maybe to just start, I'll just share my screen, and I'm just going to start first of all with a very simple prompt. Let me just move this out of the way. It's funny when you're training in different platforms, you start getting very versatile at Teams and Zoom and Connect and all sorts of things. Okay, so I've got my share screen on, so I'll just start with my app. So I'm going to just do something very simple. Imagine you're in a work situation where you are just wanting to find out, like I've got a bunch of emails and I want to start create an action list to get onto the work. I don't know if you've been in my situation where you're constantly reading through things and trying to find out what you have to do next. So with this prompt, I'm just going to run it on ChatGPT 5.3 for a quick response, because this is only a short webinar. But if you run this prompt, keep in mind that I've got it on work. And work means that I'm grounding it in my emails. Web is for web resources, so I don't really want that. Interestingly, if you really want to get draconian about it, you can even switch off web search on the right-hand side, and you can just analyze your work stuff. But we'll leave that for the time being. I'm going to run this in quick response mode, and I'm just going to run through this, summarize my 10 most recent emails in my inbox grouped by topic or sender, and give me any tasks from the emails as a bulleted list. So let's see what it does. Okay, so this is my pretend company, Get Energy. It's a drink company, not an electricity company, Denise. So you don't have to worry about setting up solar panels or what's happening in Iran at the moment. Okay, but essentially, you notice what it's done. It's just given me 5 things that I can do straight away that I know that I need to get done. Now, that would have taken me at least a half an hour of my precious morning when I could be drinking coffee, than just running through this.
That's
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah, so
I
quite
think we
nice.
need going to need to share that prompt with everyone afterwards.
Indeed. Actually, I'll paste it in
And
the chat now, actually. So I'll
thank
just
you.
paste it in the chat if you want that. Guys, by the way, how many of you are perhaps Excel users and like to save time on Excel? Are there any Excel users in our crew?
Yes.
Okay. Ben is. Okay, very good. Okay, very good. Guys, so here's something I pre-created. I'm sorry about the time limitation. And I just want to just ask you, how long do you think it would take you to create a dashboard like this using a sheet of data, financial data, or any other data? Do you think
For
it
me,
might
it would
take
be a work in progress forever,
half a
David.
day, Julian? 100%. So this took me 5 minutes, and I was using Claude, which comes with Copilot. So you'll notice that I just ran this prompt using Claude, I think it's 3.7, which is Opus 3.7. And basically, this built out this entire dashboard for me with
Wow.
just that one prompt. And so I'll just show you, I'll just
Marvelous.
run it here. I'll just show you what I mean by Claude. If I click on the Copilot chat, I'll start with new. This has been added by Anthropic. This is GPT. And I just ran the
Wow.
latest and it built out the whole thing for me while I was waiting. It took me 5 minutes to run this whole thing, which is quite
Wow.
insane. Yeah. The last one, do any of you need to compare documents? You're comparing perhaps a
Yes.
report against a
Yes.
checklist. Trainers do that all the time. Denise, you know
Yes.
that well from the training industry. So here's an example that is quite interesting. So here I have a inspector report. Somebody's written or typed this out for me. And what I need to do is I need to compare it against this checklist. So again, probably like Julian mentions, this could probably take me at least an hour of my time to just check through everything, or half an hour of my time. But imagine if you did this every day. So all I did was I ran this prompt, which is compare my inspector report and build a comparison table for me. So that's all I did with this one. Just paste that in there, summarize the key points. And what it did was it generated this
Wow.
for me
Wow.
in 2 minutes.
Wow.
So it's perfectly grounded because I'm using work. But again, I could probably sharpen up the prompt, make sure that it provides me with exactly the information that I need, and then the corrections that I need to make so that I don't have to do it myself. So guys, do you think that might be useful? Do you think that that's something that you would
Love
use
it.
for
Love
your...
it.
Yeah, so just a couple of examples there. And I'll just
Yes, and
mention...
I think, David, that it's certainly something that we've all got to find in our own little kind of world what that means for in our own kind of domain, how we could find these efficiencies and make sure that we are in fact using AI to its biggest advantage. And please, guys, in the last few minutes that we have available, please put more questions into chat and anything that you'd like to know more about. But just one final poll for yourselves as you leave the session is, what would you see as a top priority? Like, is there something following this very quick 30-minute briefing where David's given you some ideas? What do you see? Is it clearer guidelines? Is it a policy? Is it running more pilots, more training? And David's waving his hands, please make it more training.
More training. And then also something that's of interest, Denise, I don't know if any in the audience are interested in perhaps some further education on actual AI adoption for their organization. I know that that's been holding decision making a lot, so I don't know if that's a future consideration for some.
That could be, absolutely. I haven't put that, well, that maybe as an other, but I do think that that is something that should in fact be on the list as well. And as I said earlier, we do have a very special gift for you as well, and that we're going to be giving free of charge to everyone a e-learning module around AI compliance. It can obviously be adapted and customized to your situation, but I think that that is something, and we will send out, if you'd like to receive that, we'll give you the mechanism for that. But just reading in some of the comments there, people are talking about co-pilot training. Training seems to be coming up, capabilities, absolutely. And yes, we will, after this session, we will be able to send you just some notification if you'd like this free e-learning module. So a huge thank you to you, David, as well. I just need to put in one last marketing plug that we do offer the training, and the everything is through our virtual classes. And if there's anything that you need around the training side of things, please speak to us, because David conducts many of these sessions for us, 1.5 hours, and he focuses on various aspects. So a big thank you to everyone for coming along, for your input, for your ideas, for your perspectives on things as well. And it was great to see some of our lovely clients here, and also to hear from people. But if you'd like any questions, if there's something that we haven't mentioned, we will stay online for the next few moments. If there's something that you want to ask in particular, we will stay online, so that if there's anything else you want to know, we're very happy to respond to that.
Indeed.
So I hope it's given everyone food for thought, at least. I see some of you have put some actions in that you're going to be taking.
Nice,
but it's always good to see those commitments being made publicly, more likely to happen. So if there is anything else, even after this session, please just email us, and David will be, or I, or anyone in our team will be very happy to respond. And after the session, we will also send you an email asking you if you'd like the free e-learning module as well, which you can load up onto your LMS and use it throughout your team and your organization. So thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks,
Lovely
Denise.
to see
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you
Bye.
so much. Bye-bye.